All right, guys, good morning. Some technical issues this morning. I uploaded part 2 to my Tom Girardi Deep Dive series. It is 22 minutes long, but what happened is the last 15 minutes did not upload, and instead it created a loop of the 10 minutes. So you're going to hear the first 10 minutes of part 2, the Tom Girardi, and then it'll start those 10 minutes over again when it should have had the last 16 minutes. So I've literally been uploading that video since yesterday, and for that reason, I'm not going to delete it to put it together with this 16 minutes. I'm going to put the 16 minutes together in a 2.1, 2.0, whatever you want to call it, a continuation of part 2, because the last 16 minutes were not uploaded properly. So I apologize for any inconvenience. I hope that this answers any questions that you have with the technical issues. Again, the part 2 video will loop. You will watch 11 minutes of it, and those 11 minutes will start again, but I am uploading the 16 minutes now in this video. I might put this before so you understand. All right, guys, have a great day. Hi, guys. Okay, so where we left off, had to break for a second. Anyways, so there's a again. I'm gonna stop, I promise. Okay. We're talking about Edelson, and he has flown from Chicago with his team to meet the amazing Tom Girardi in LA, and they go to Morton's for lunch, and Tom is greeting all of the tables. He's speaking to everyone, and they realize that Tom has booked in a meeting with all of these tables. All of the tables in this area, Tom has set up lunch meetings with, and they all have their Tom's name on the menu. Now, Edelson makes a great point. He's like, listen, we were dealing with a really crazy, sensitive, tragic thing that happened. We didn't really care how he got his names on the menus, to be honest with you. Then he says that, sorry, guys, I just wanted to get over here. So basically, the Lion Air suit would be tried in Chicago. Edelson was Chicago-based attorney. That's why it was going to work for him to be out there. Edelson says he gave us a long story about all the money he spends at these places. He says, but we were dealing with a real tragedy. That was our focus. We weren't terribly interested in how he got his name on the menu. The Lion Air suit was eventually settled for an undisclosed amount of sums. This is why it's kind of tricky, and you don't really realize who Edelson is, because they didn't disclose how much the victims were paid, or which means we wouldn't have known really what the attorney fees were. Because typically, again, as I've said before, the attorney fee is 40%, 50%, 60%, whatever the case may be. And obviously, if we know what the settlement is in total towards the victims, it's simple math to know what the attorneys received. And so Edelson, again, quote, it's very common for attorneys not to want to pay co-counsel fees. At the beginning, we thought we owed a couple $1 million in fees, and they weren't paying. It's annoying, but not a big deal. At a certain point, Edelson began to suspect that their clients hadn't gotten the money either. Mass tort settlements are typically complex. That's very true. These are liens to sort out, medical bills to pay, legal expenses to cover. Different plaintiffs with different amounts based on the extent of their damages. Often, plaintiffs didn't even know how much they were supposed to get, so they didn't know when to complain. Isn't that some shit? Welcome to our judicial system in 2022. The victim doesn't even know what the settlement is, so they don't even know when to complain because they don't even know what their settlement was. So when the money stopped, it just stopped, I guess. That's how they knew. What the hell? I can't even believe that. Anyways, he says, so they didn't even know when to complain. And Edelson demanded, he got a hold of Girardi. He was, very upset about what's going on. And he demanded that the clients be paid. Girardi responded with a vague, ever-shifting excuse. Edelson grew even more suspicious. Quote, "We thought it was unthinkable that an attorney of Girardi's statue was going to steal money from widows and children. It didn't add up." Okay? Right? Does that add up? No, it doesn't. Would it had added up if we'd known there had been 205 complaints filed with a California bar? If we had known that, maybe it wouldn't have sounded so crazy then. But we didn't. Edelson kept after Girardi, who tried turning up the charm. He would leave voicemails for Edelson and say things promising greater riches down the road. Things like, I quote, "I want to be in charge of all your shit." This is what Girardi said in one of them. Quote, "At the end of the 9 months, I want you to say, 'God, Tom, you made me another million.'" Quote, he signed off with a very Hollywood, "Thanks, babe." Edelson considered a lawsuit, but he hesitated. They spoke with his former partners. They spoke with other people. They said, "It's going to blow up on you. There'll be a spotlight on your plaintiff's bar. It would lead to reform. It would hurt people. He's been doing this for a long time. He's always gotten away with it, and it's shocking." This is what people in the legal department around California was telling Edelson, because Edelson's based out of Illinois. So the community of people within the judicial system, the location, it's obviously different. And so he speaks with people that worked with Tom previously, Tom's old partner, and they're saying, "Don't do it. It'll blow up in your face." A little more than a year ago, Girardi was a paragon of success. Well, this is when the article came out, the LA magazine. An attorney who'd taken on giant corporations and beaten them again and again. If his displays of wealth were ostentatious, if his wife was on a reality TV show, if she had a closet bigger than most one-bedroom apartments, filled to the brim with shoes, if they had 2 private jets, was that not what a person like Tom Girardi deserved? But in the winter of 2020, thank you for COVID, some startling revelations unpended the picture. Girardi was broke. His wife was divorcing him, which was planned, allegedly. Dozens of lawyers, litigation lenders, and clients, victims of corporate negligence to whom Girardi had once appeared as a savior, said that he had stole their money, lied to their faces, or over the phone, over and over and over again. It is perhaps the biggest legal scandal in the state of California, and we have not seen one criminal charge until the CFO went down a week ago. That's it. I'm reading that paragraph again, okay? Because I liked it. It was powerful. It said a lot of what I, in my opinion, feel. He says, when you think about these poor people who didn't get the recovery they were entitled to, it's crazy. It's just crazy. He says, Girardi had once appeared as a savior. Why did we say that? Some of you probably haven't watched Aaron Brockovich. I can't say how old I am, but I can say that it was probably came out when I was like young, like not probably even in double digits. So I have seen it, and Julia Roberts was big back then. And it basically was about this town of people whom their kids were sick, they were sick, they had tumors. They could not figure it out. It was terrible. It was terribly sad. And the company is I think they were like dumping chemicals or something in the area. And they were trying to say that it wasn't, it had anything to do with what the people around there were dealing with. And so this girl was a paralegal. The girl who Aaron Brockovich played, she was a paralegal out there on site talking to these people. And she ended up getting a water test and getting it sent out, and it came out that the water was poisoning these people. And guys, that's the thing, when we think of carcinogenics, we think cancer, okay, lung cancer, skin cancer, they got cancer, they died. These people had lumps on them. They had lumps growing on them. They had painful, rare, very rare forms of cancer because they were caused from these chemicals, hard chemicals, whatever it was that was in the water, in the land. And so it wasn't your normal sort of cancer. Not that there is a normal cancer, and not that one's better than any other. But I think it's important to realize that when you're in situations, the chemicals affect people differently. It may be a way slower death for somebody else than someone who maybe doesn't already have a good immune system. You don't know. But that is how Tom Girardi got big, because they were this little law office. I don't even think Tom was like the lead. He just worked there on the case, of course, because there was only two of them, and they had Aaron Brockovich, and she was a single mom, and she was a paralegal, and they didn't like her because she was a woman and she was coming into the work field and she had a kid, and they were just like, chauvinistic pigs, basically. And she ended up uncovering this whole scheme that this whole corporation was doing, poisoning an entire town of people, and a movie being made about it, Aaron Brockovich. And so Tom probably got a nice check out of that alone. But the notoriety, especially around this time, it's important because 20 years ago, we didn't have the internet. Let's say even 22, 23, 25 years ago, it was different. How did you find out of people? Word of mouth? The yellow pages? If you had an attorney who discovered a massive ring of poisoning people, and they made a Hollywood movie about it, and you were in it, then I feel like that co-signs you, right? That co-signs you. People trust you automatically, and that's what he's saying. This man came in as their savior. They thought down the line, I'm saying, once he won the big case and they made the movie and he was big time, these people thought that he was their savior, and he was the opposite. He came to steal and destroy, and he lied to them over and over and over. Neil Werdelib, who chairs the ethics committee for the California Lawyers Association. Wait till I read you all the awards that Tom won every year annually. You're gonna die. Anyways, he says instead, the people didn't get the money they were entitled to. Instead, their money went to buy the stuff in Erica's closet. It's such a betrayal. It's hard to imagine anything worse an attorney could do. So this gentleman, Neil, is saying he's the chair of the ethics committee in the California Lawyers Association, and he's blatantly, word for word, verbatim, in quotations, saying instead their money went to buy the stuff in Erica's closet. Moving on. Tom Girardi practiced law in California for more than a century. He kept paper copies. I told you guys this before. This is tea, but we might as well put it in if we're going to put it in the series. After all this happened, when the news broke, the government went in as fab suits, and they took everything. They took all those paper files, okay? Because Tom had been in Hollywood before it was big. Do you guys know what I'm saying? Like, if there was ever an old Hollywood, it's Tom Girardi. Just saying. Anyways, so in the wake of the state's most famous tragedies, the Ghost Ship fire, Northridge earthquakes, there was Girardi suing insurance companies and utilities and governments and even the Los Angeles Dodgers over the Brian Stowe beating. He took on Lockheed, Dole, Shell, Ford, Pfizer, and more of the major Hollywood studios. These companies all feared him for his vast network of influence, but also for his talent in the courtroom. He had a fulness that juries lapped up. Quote, he had a really great instinct on his cases, says Graham Lipsmith, an attorney at Girardi's firm, Girardi and Keese, for 13 years. Quote, he could look at a couple pieces of paper and strike at the heart of what matters. Speaking to the Los Angeles Times in 1997, a San Francisco lawyer said Girardi can, quote, take a complex set of facts and reduce it to a highly understandable situation for a jury. He's not a great reader of legal books, but in front of a jury, he's dynamite. He was equally indomitable in mediation, where he could extract enormous settlements as he did in the Hinckley case. Quote, lots and lots of times insurance companies would settle with him on reputation alone, as I told you guys. So, they said he socialized compulsively. I've never heard that before, because he didn't seem to me like status, yes, but socialized, no. It says he socialized compulsively on golf courses and in steakhouses. That's kind of weird. Do you guys remember in the pandemic and what Erica said, that Tom would bring Morton's home every single night? That's weird. That's so weird. I never heard that. He regularly threw lavish parties for the legal community with performances from Jay Leno and Styx. He was close with lawyers and judges alike. Quote, being a good lawyer has nothing to do with knowing the case of Mapp versus Ohio, Girardi told Modern Counsel in 2019 when he was 83.5 years old. Really, it's all has to do with relationships. And so many lawyers have lost the idea of how important relationships are with your clients, the judge, and the other side. At the heart of Girardi's saga lies a mystery. Why did he steal money from widows and orphans, from burn victims, from homeowners who lived on toxic soil, and yes, from other lawyers? Was it premeditated? Was it a Ponzi scheme, as Edelson alleges? What possesses a lawyer of his stature to do something like that? If you guys know, please put it in the comments. I want to know your opinions, honestly, to that question, because it's a great question. Now, let's go back to Girardi's second divorce. He filed it in 98. It went on for 4 years. We talk about that. Now, that wife and him, I think they were in Pasadena. Yes, they were the first ones in the Pasadena mansion. She talked about how he's more extravagant. So then what happened is she wants to get a divorce from him. She doesn't want to get a divorce. She wants to get a private detective to see if she wants to get divorced. So she gets a private detective, and the private detective was, his name was Alfred, and his last name starts with a W, and he was hired to dig through Girardi's finances, and they were a mess. Personal expense charges as business expenses, millions of dollars shifted from account to account without